There is a place so cursed that even the prophet warned us to stay away. A land where the ground itself bears witness to divine wrath, where the very stones cry out in silent testimony to what once happened there, where travelers who pass through report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the earth beneath their feet remembers something terrible. The Prophet Muhammad himself passed by this place during his journey to Tabuk, but he didn't stop. He didn't rest. Instead, he covered his face, quickened his pace, and warned his companions, "Do not enter upon these people who wrong themselves, except that you enter weeping, lest you be afflicted with what they were afflicted with." This is the story of Al-Hijr, the Valley of the Stone Houses, the cursed land of the people of Thamud. What happened there, and why is it still feared today? In the heart of the Arabian Peninsula lies a valley that time forgot. Al-Hijr, known today as Madain Saleh, stretches across the barren landscape of northwestern Saudi Arabia like a graveyard of giants. The moment you enter this valley, something feels wrong. The silence is too complete. The air is too still. Even the wind seems to avoid this place, as if nature itself recoils from what happened here over 2,000 years ago. These aren't natural rock formations. Carved deep into the sandstone cliffs are dozens of elaborate tombs and houses, their facades decorated with intricate designs that speak of a once mighty civilization. The craftsmanship is breathtaking, the artistry is undeniable, but every single structure is empty, hollow, dead. The Quran tells us about the people who built these monuments, the tribe of Thamud. They were blessed with incredible skill, carving homes from solid rock, creating palaces in mountains, building a civilization that should have lasted forever. Allah had granted them everything they could desire: fertile lands, abundant water, artistic genius, physical strength that allowed them to shape stone as easily as clay. They were among the most advanced people of their time. But prosperity became their poison. Success became their curse. The more they built, the more arrogant they became. The more they achieved, the more they forgot their creator. Their carved palaces became shrines to their own pride. Their stone houses became monuments to their defiance of Allah. When Allah sent them a prophet, Salih, to guide them back to the straight path, they demanded a miracle, not just any miracle. They wanted something impossible, something that would prove beyond doubt that Salih was truly sent by Allah. They pointed to a massive boulder and said, "If you're really a prophet, make a she-camel emerge from this solid rock. Not just any camel, a pregnant camel that will give birth before our eyes." And Allah granted their request. The rock split open and out emerged a magnificent she-camel, heavy with child. The miracle was undeniable. The proof was absolute. But instead of humbling themselves before this divine sign, the people of Thamud grew more defiant. They had received their miracle, but their hearts had already turned to stone, just like the rocks they carved. Prophet Salih gave them a simple command: "This is Allah's she-camel. Let her graze freely. Do not harm her, or you will face severe punishment." For a while they obeyed. The camel roamed their valley, drinking from their wells, grazing on their pastures. But their resentment grew with each passing day. And then they made the decision that would curse their land forever. It started with whispers, complaints about the camel drinking too much water, grumbling about it taking up too much pasture. The miracle that should have humbled them became an inconvenience they resented. 9 men from the most influential families of Thamud gathered in secret. Their names are preserved in Islamic history as a warning: Qudar ibn Salif, Masda ibn Dahr, and 7 others whose hearts had turned blacker than the stones they carved. They made a pact, not just to kill the she-camel, but to murder Prophet Salih and his family afterward. They would eliminate both the miracle and the messenger in one coordinated attack. But Allah knew their plans. The Quran records their plotting. They planned their plot, and Allah planned his plot, while they perceived not. The attack came at dawn. As the she-camel grazed peacefully in the valley, Qudar ibn Salif drew his sword and struck the fatal blow. The divine creature collapsed, her blood staining the sand that would soon witness far greater horror. The moment the camel died, the very atmosphere of Al-Hijr changed. The sky darkened, the wind stopped, even the birds fell silent as if all creation held its breath in anticipation of divine judgment. Troublesome camel. Some even planned to carry out their plot against the Prophet himself. The first day passed. Nothing happened. They laughed at Salih's warning. The second day passed. Still nothing. Their confidence grew. On the third morning, they woke to an unnatural silence. The usual sounds of life, birds singing, animals stirring, children playing, were completely absent. The air itself seemed to tremble with anticipation. Then came the sound, a noise unlike anything human ears had ever heard. The Quran describes it as As-Sayhah, the blast. Some scholars say it was a sound so powerful it shattered their hearts. Others describe it as a shockwave that pulverized their bodies. In a single moment, the entire civilization of Thamud was wiped from existence. Men, women, children, livestock, everything that drew breath in that valley died instantly. Their carved palaces became their tombs. Their stone houses became their monuments. But the divine punishment wasn't finished. The earth beneath Al-Hijr began to shake, not from earthquakes, but from something far more terrifying. The Quran tells us that after the blast came a rajfa, the violent convulsion that overturned their entire world. Their magnificent buildings, carved from solid rock and designed to last forever, crumbled like sandcastles. The very mountains they had shaped with such pride turned against them, burying their civilization under tons of stone and debris. When the dust settled, Al-Hijr had become a wasteland. The fertile valley had turned into a barren desert. The flowing springs had dried up. The green pastures had withered to dust. Prophet Salih and the few believers who had followed him were safely away when the punishment struck. They watched from a distant hill as divine wrath consumed the valley, turning a thriving civilization into a cursed monument that would stand as a warning for all time. And to this day, Al-Hijr remains exactly as Allah left it after his punishment, empty, silent, and forever marked by what happened there. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell, but Al-Hijr remained untouched, as if protected by an invisible barrier that kept life from returning to its cursed soil. When Arab traders traveled the ancient routes between Yemen and Syria, they would hurry past the Valley of Stone Houses. Local Bedouins spoke in whispers about the place where Allah's anger had struck the earth. Children grew up hearing stories about the people who had carved palaces but lost their souls. No one dared to settle there. No one tried to rebuild. The very stones seemed to warn against disturbing what Allah had cursed. Then came the day when Prophet Muhammad himself would pass through Al-Hijr during his expedition to Tabuk. His companions not. Fully understanding the significance of the ruins, began to make camp in the valley. They drew water from the ancient wells. They prepared to rest in the shade of the carved chambers. After all, these stone houses offered perfect shelter from the desert sun. But the Prophet immediately ordered them to stop. His face was solemn as he explained, "Do not enter upon these people who wronged themselves, except that you enter weeping, lest you be afflicted with what they were afflicted with." He commanded them to pour out any water they had taken from Thamud's wells. He ordered them to feed any dough they had mixed with that water to their camels. Nothing from this cursed place should enter their bodies or nourish their lives. The Prophet then covered his face and quickened his pace, not slowing down until they had completely left the valley behind. His companions followed, understanding that they had just witnessed their beloved leader flee from a place where divine punishment still lingered. This hadith, preserved in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, serves as an eternal warning. The Prophet's reaction teaches us that some places carry such weight of divine displeasure that even the most righteous should avoid them. Al-Hijr stands today as it stood then, empty, silent, cursed. Modern archaeologists study its carved facades and marvel at the skill of its creators. Tourists photograph its ancient doorways and wonder at its mysterious past. But believers who understand its true history feel what the Prophet felt, a deep unease, a spiritual weight that presses down on the soul. They remember that these beautiful ruins are not just archaeological wonders, but monuments to arrogance, testimonies to the price of defying Allah. The stones still cry out their warning. Pride leads to punishment. Defiance leads to destruction. And some sins leave marks that never fade. Today, Al-Hijr remains the most cursed place in Islam, not because Allah takes pleasure in punishment, but because it serves as an eternal reminder of what happens when blessings become sources of arrogance instead of gratitude. Salvation. Their carved palaces still stand, but their civilization died in a single moment of divine justice. And perhaps one day, someone will walk there again and remember what happened to those who defied Allah. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. The next one might be even darker.